grief, the flowers, the words left for Sarah Everard keep growing. This is the man charged with kidnapping and murdering the 33-year-old. Wayne Couzens, a serving officer, now suspect, arriving at court in a police van. This morning, Wayne Couzens appeared here, in the dock, behind a glass screen at Westminster Magistrates Court. The serving police officer was flanked by two fellow officers as he sat wearing a grey tracksuit top with his head in his hands throughout the short hearing. Last night, the 48-year-old was taken to hospital for the second time in 2 days after being found in his cell with head injuries. Wayne Couzens spoke quietly when asked to confirm his name, date of birth and address. Accused of kidnapping and killing the 33-year-old marketing executive after Sarah Everard went missing on the streets of South London last week. Police began a painstaking search, at the time saying they hoped she was still alive. But within days, that hope appeared to be wearing thin, as officers began searching an area of woodland in Ashford in Kent. They later discovered human remains, and through dental records, days later, confirmed that it was Sarah Everard. Some 30 miles away, Wayne Couzens was arrested at his home in Deal. Last night, police said Sarah Everard's family were in their thoughts.
I would like at this stage to pay tribute to Sarah's family for their fortitude and forbearance through what can only have been the most intensely difficult few days. Our thoughts remain with them as this matter progresses.
Today in Kent, police continue to search the surrounding woodlands where Sarah Everard's body was found. Wayne Couzens has been remanded in custody and will now appear at the Old Bailey on Tuesday.
Well, vigils had been organised across the country tonight in Sarah Everard's memory and to call for more action to tackle violence against women. But they've had to be cancelled. Instead, organisers are urging people to stand outside on their doorsteps at 9:30 this evening, marking the time when Ms Everard disappeared. Minnie Stevenson is in Clapham now, where one of the vigils had been planned. And Minnie, it would have been around this time, wouldn't it?
Kathy, that's right. A vigil was supposed to be happening right now, but as we know, the Metropolitan Police pulled the event because they said it was against COVID regulations. Organisers said they felt silenced by Scotland Yard, but as you can see, hundreds have still come out here this evening to pay their respects. In extraordinary scenes, the Duchess of Cambridge came down this evening with very little security. She walked through the crowds to lay some flowers. She said she wanted to be here to pay her respects to the Everard family because she too understood what it was like to walk the streets of London late at night before she was married to Prince William. Hundreds have come out here this evening. Earlier, we spoke to some of those people.
We're all socially distanced, we all have masks. It's not like some, super spreader event that isn't necessary. This is a necessary process for people to grieve and come together and express their anger that this keeps happening to women.
I don't think people are here to protest. They are not here to break the law, but they have the sense of responsibility.
I think it's really unfortunate that we couldn't have come this evening, which we were planning to do. My daughter's here as well, and we're residents of Clapham.
And so many protests over the summer, and I understand that a lot of them were illegal, but it feels as though, everyone's here for the same reason. We're here for quite a positive reason, really. We want to, be all together at this time. So I think there is a lot of anger about it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, same. We were just discussing how it's hard for us. It's hard to not kind of put yourself and say that could have been me, and you want to be able to come and pay those respects.
And this debate over protests will come to Parliament on Monday, won't it? Tell us about that.
Absolutely. There is a broader context to all of this. On Monday, the government will try to tighten the laws around protesting. Now, their critics say this is all part of draconian measures which stop people being able to protest. Now, the government say this is in order to give the police tighter restrictions. Now, as that culture war plays out in the background, as you can see, they are shouting loudly here and they will not be silenced.
Minnie, thanks very much. Joining me now is the Conservative MP Caroline Noakes, Chair of the Women and Equalities Committee. Caroline Noakes, do you sympathise with people, including the Duchess of Cambridge, who went to pay their respects there in Clapham, despite the police saying don't go?
Absolutely. And you can see from the pictures that there are many people in Clapham who didn't go to protest. They went to express their sorrow, their anger, and to come together. And that's such a natural human emotion at a time like this, to want to be with other people. Now, I know that the organisers were very clear. They had good plans as to how the vigil could have been conducted in a socially distanced manner. But unfortunately, that wasn't to be the case. So you have people acting individually. And of course, we will all be on our doorsteps this evening, shining a light for Sarah, but also to make sure that that we harness this emotion, this anger, and find ways forward. And I think that's the crucial thing at this time.
Exactly. Well, how to harness that then? What laws need to change? How does the culture need to change? How do you, as a lawmaker, do that?
So I think there are a number of things that have to be done. First and foremost, I was really pleased that the Home Secretary yesterday decided to reopen the call for evidence for the strategy on violence against women and girls. That's a really crucial opportunity that we all have to feed into the process and make our voices heard. But there are other opportunities. So this coming week, we have coming before Parliament the police crime sentencing and courts bill. There will be amendments tabled to that. And I, as a parliamentarian, will be looking for all sorts of opportunities to make sure that we get tighter legislation on a whole raft of measures. And I think, Harriet Harman is laying an amendment about men who curb crawl young girls. I would widen that. Outlaw curb crawling, full stop, whether it's somebody in their school uniform or whether it's an older woman. It shouldn't be acceptable.
And what about making street harassment a specific offence? Is that something that should be done?
Well, that's something that I called for last year. I think it absolutely should be. And what has been really apparent in the very many stories, the hundreds of thousands of stories that we've seen on social media, street harassment is unbelievably common. There are so few women that have never experienced it. And you heard one of the girls that was spoken to earlier said, it doesn't happen every day, but the fear that it will happen is there every day.
But the fact that you've called for that law, Harriet Harman's called for her curb crawling law before, it hasn't happened. Aren't many women justified in thinking that the justice system just doesn't work for them?
Well, I suggested yesterday that I thought there should be a women's justice strategy. This week, we've seen a women's health strategy brought forward. I've long been calling for a women's employment strategy. This is a moment where the energy of so many women has to be harnessed and we have to use it. So I've been talking to Harriet this evening, signalling my support for her amendment and saying, look, let's do this on a cross-party basis. Let female parliamentarians come together to emphasise to all of our colleagues how important it is that we have action.
So what about joining up all of those initiatives and going for a gender injustice commission, make this a really landmark event?
Well, I think that's a really good idea that has much merit to it. And I think, certainly from my perspective, I've been quite frustrated that everything seems to be a bit piecemeal. So actually a bringing together of all of these areas where we know in the justice system there are huge problems for women. We know in employment, in health, there are massive challenges still in the 21st century for women. So actually, I think now is an opportunity for the Government Equalities Office to say, hang on, we could come together with an overarching strategy and make sure that's embedded in every department across Whitehall.
Briefly, all of this needs funding, and you've seen the generosity of the British public tonight, raising hundreds of thousands of pounds in the memory of Sarah Everard. What do you say to the government to urge them to put their money where their mouth is on all of these policies?
I think it's really obvious that this should be a priority, and I hope the government is listening to the voices of millions of women across the country.
Caroline Noakes, thanks very much.